Hello there and welcome back to the So You Pick Job Edition, where we have a look at your toolkit, how to get your jobstone, your job gauge, and how it all works. So this time we are hanging out with Leah again because we're going to be looking into one of the new jobs released with Endwalker, the Sage. Now, Sage is a healer job which uses nouliths as a weapon, which are kind of like a set of mind control drones, which is very sci-fi, and I'm super digging it right now. First impressions, I am really enjoying the healing style, and absolutely love the new weapons animations. Love them, really, so fucking cool. So, all of the expansion jobs work differently to the starter classes, because none of them start at level 1. They all start at different levels based on what expansion they're from. Heavensward jobs start at level 30, Stormbloods are level 50, Shadowbringers are level 60, and lastly, Endwalkers, they both start at level 70. So when you unlock the job, you're kind of thrown in at the deep end, because you suddenly have a whole bunch of skills and abilities instantly at your disposal. So it can be a bit daunting to start off with, trying to figure out what everything does and how everything fits together. So come join us as we dive into the basics of the Sage. You're set, Leah? So damn cool. Let's go then, let's go. Right guys, so in order to unlock the Sage job, you need the following. You need to own the Endwalker expansion, and you need to have a combat job at level 70 or higher. Now once that's done, you will come here to pick up this quest. Now the NPC isn't here for me since I've unlocked it already, but finish her quest and you will be the proud owner of the Sage Jobstone, your first set of nouliths, and a gear coffer which holds a set of level 70 gear. Now to get the gear, make sure you are in a city. Just head into your inventory and use the coffer, which will add the gear to your armory chest. Now to change to the Sage shop, you'll be going down into the character menu like so, and unlike the starter classes, you'll be coming up to the main hand and you'll be equipping the Stone Gold Mill Preves, which is your Sage level 70 starter weapon. And don't worry, your job stone will equip automatically at the same time. But if you're all sorted, congratulations, you're now an official Sage with a full but messed up hotbar. Now personally, I would remove everything from the hotbar and start fresh, because they tend to play stuff randomly on your bar as it throws it all at you at the same time. Now to do that quickly, you can use the following macro, which will remove everything from that hotbar, so make sure you pick the right one, because there is no undo button. So now comes the fun bit. We're going to have a look at your level 70 toolkit, and we're going to have a look at how it all fits together and how it works in a dungeon set. Right guys, so before we jump into the toolkit proper, we're going to have a look at the job gauge. Now you will get two little job gauges on the screen. First one being Eucrazia, this little round one here at the bottom. Now that will light up when you use the Eucrazia skill to let you know that that buff is active. And it will turn off once you've used a spell that's compatible with it. Now onto the main gauge itself. The bar on the gauge will automatically fill up even outside of combat, and every time the bar fills, it will generate an Adder's Gold crystal, which is those blue ones at the top of the bar. You can carry a maximum of 3 at any one time, and whenever you use one, the bar will automatically fill up and replace it. Now you'll use those Adder's Gold crystals in order to execute actions such as Keratrol, Keratrol, and a lot of your higher level instant cast abilities. Now these little diamond ones at the bottom of the gauge, purple diamonds, those are your Adder Sting crystals. Now you will generate an Adder Sting crystal when the barrier effect of Eucrazian Diagnosis is completely absorbed. So Eucrazian Diagnosis is a shield which will absorb a certain amount of damage. Now once it's absorbed all of the damage that it can, it will disappear, and when it disappears, it will generate an Addisting crystal. Now your Addisting crystals can be used to execute 2 of your higher level damage spells, Toxicon and Toxicon 2. So you want to be applying shield as much as you can so you can generate more Addisting crystals and do a lot more damage. And that is your job gauge. So now let's just jump straight into your starter toolkit. Right guys, so your basic toolkit. So first up, you have Dosis. Now Dosis is your main damage dealing spell. It will deal unaspected damage with a potency of 300, and it has an additional effect which will restore health points to your target who is under the effect of Cardia, the Cardia buff. That Cardia buff has to be granted by you, and it has that cure potency is 130. Now the Cardia buff comes into play at level 4, so we're going to go a little bit deeper into that one right then. And next up, you get Diagnosis. Now Diagnosis is your basic heal. It will restore your target's health point, single target, and it has a Q potency of 400. Now next up is Cardia. Now Cardia is a cool little system. What it essentially is an ability that will grant yourself and another party member a buff called you will get Cardia and your party member will get Cardion. Now what that buff does is it will activate the additional effect of your DPS skills. So your DPS skills have an additional effect of restoring health points to targets under the effect of Cardion, and obviously granted by you. And that cure potency is 130. So every time you use a damage dealing spell in combat, obviously, you and your partner, your Cardian partner, will get a small little trickle heal. It's just a little bit of heal. It'll top you up nicely. You can kind of think of it like a mini regen where you'll just get healed a little bit every time you do a damage spell, which is a cool little system. For the most part, it should always be put on the tank. You can swap it to like a melee DPS if they're running into trouble and they're taking more damage than the tank is for whatever reason, but primarily it will go on the tank just to keep them topped up nice and neatly. It's less complicated than I made it sound. So moving on. Next we have Prognosis. Now Prognosis is an AoE healing spell. It will restore HP and the HP of all nearby party members, and it has a cure potency of 300. It is essentially the AoE version of Diagnosis, which is your single target. Fairly straightforward. And next up, you get Agero. Now, Agero is Sage's version of the Resurrection spell. Bring people back when they've been knocked out. And like all the others, it has a high MP cost of 2,400. Has a long cast time, so it should always be used with Swift Cast from raw skills. And it will resurrect your target to a weakened state. So it'll bring them back from 0 health points. Same as all the other healers. Next up is Physicist. It is a regen spell. I'm going to quickly gloss over it because it's one of the upgraded spells. So when you reach level 60, it will automatically change to Physicist 2, which is a better version of it. So you will only ever see this skill if you are synced below level 60. So if you're in a older content, lower level content, it will be Physic on your hotbar. And like a lot of things, it will change automatically. You don't have to adjust it yourself. Now, Physicist, the basic spell, is a regen spell. It is gradually restores your own health points and the HP of all nearby party members. It has a cure potency of 100, and that regen will last for 15 seconds. Now, next up is Phlegma. Now, that is an AoE damage dealing spell. It will deal unaspected damage to your target and all enemies nearby it. Now, your target will be hit with a 400 potency attack, and anyone else who's hit by it will receive 30% less damage from the spell. And it also has the additional effect of restoring HP to your targets under the effect of Cardia, with a Q potency of 130 like all the others, and it has a maximum charge of 2. And next up is Eucrazia. Now, Eucrazia is an important skill. It will augment certain offensive and healing magic actions. So what it does is it will change the effects of some of your skills for one cast. So it will affect Dosis, Diagnosis, and Prognosis. Now what it does for Dosis is it will change it to a instant cast damage over time, much like White Mage's Arrow. Now what it does for Diagnosis is it will sacrifice some cure potency in order to erect a barrier around your target, which will absorb a set percentage of damage. And Eucrazia Prognosis is the AoE version of that. And with Sage being a shield, primarily a shield healer, you'll want to be putting up your Diagnosis and Prognosis shielded versions up as much as possible. Next up is Ceteria. Now, Ceteria will increase the cure potency of your Cardia effects by 50% for 15 seconds. Quite handy for when you just want to, when you're dealing a lot of damage, you just want that extra little bit of heals. Quite cool stuff. Fairly straightforward, to be fair. Now, next up, Icarus. Now, Icarus is a gap closer kind of teleport move. It will rush you to a targeted enemy's or party member's location. Quite handy for getting yourself into and out of trouble. And you can cast that every 45 seconds. Now next, you get Keratrol. Completely butchered that. But we're going to go on with it. Now Keratrol is a single target, high-powered cure spell. Now it is off global cooldown and it has an additional effect of restoring 7% of your maximum health points. So it's quite good for regenerating HP. And it will cost you 1 Adder's Gore crystal. Now next up is Dysgrazia. Now Dysgrazia is an AoE damage spell. Instant cast. It will deal unaspected damage with a potency of 160 to all of your nearby enemies. It also has the additional effect, like all the other damage spells, of restoring HP to your targets under Cardia. And again, that Q potency for that is 130. Now, Dysgrazia is not a targeted AoE, so when you use it, the AoE effect will be around you, not around your target. So bear that one in mind. So next up is Keratrol. Now, Keratrol is a buff which will reduce the damage taken by yourself and nearby party members by 10%. And that buff will last for 15 seconds. It also has an additional effect of restoring 7% of your maximum MP when it's used, and it will cost 1 Adder's Gore crystal to use. And you can reuse that every 30 seconds. Now next up is Ixatrol. Now Ixatrol is the AoE version of Keratrol, so it has all the same effects, with a cure potency of 400 and an additional effect of restoring 7% of your maximum magic points. And like Keratrol, it will cost 1 Adder's Gore crystal. Next up is Zoe. Now Zoe is a buff to your healing spell. It will increase the healing potency of your next healing spell by 50%, and you have 30 seconds to use a healing spell, otherwise the buff will wear off. Now next up, you have Pepsis. Now Pepsis will restore your own health points and the health points of nearby party members by removing any shields that you've put up on your party. Now its potency will vary depending on what shield you have put up on your target. Now Eucrazia Diagnosis shield, the cure potency will be 450, and if it is a Prognosis shield, the AoE version, the cure potency will be 350. And if your targets are not under the effect of any of the shields, they will not be healed at all. So if you're going to use Pepsis, make sure that they have shields on in order to heal them. Now next up is Physicist 2, which is the straight up upgrade to Physicist, and it will replace it when you're level 60 or above. Now it will do the same thing. Is a regen spell. It gets a boosted cure potency of 130, and that regen will still last for 15 seconds. But it gets an additional effect as well at this when it's upgraded, which will increase the HP recovered by your healing actions by 10%. And that extra buff, will last for 10 seconds. Makes it a lot cooler. Now next up, you get Keratrol. Now Keratrol is the single target version of Keratrol. It will also restore your own and target's HP by a cure potency of 700. It will reduce your target's damage taken by 10%, and that additional effect will last for 15 seconds. And like Keratrol, it will restore 7% of your maximum magic points and will cost 1 Adder's Gold Crystal. Next up, you get Toxicon. Now Toxicon is an AoE damage dealing spell. It will deal unexpected damage to your target and all enemies nearby it with a potency of 300 for the first enemy it hits, and 50% less for all remaining enemies nearby it. It also has the additional effect, like all your damage spells, of restoring HP to targets under the effect of Cardia. And like everything else, like all the other ones, the cure potency for that is 130, and it will cost 1 Adder Sting Crystal. Now, lastly is Jaime. Now, Jaime will erect a magic barrier around yourself or your target party member. It will absorb damage equivalent to a 300 potency heal. So not quite a substantial amount. Now it has an additional effect of granting 5 stacks of Hymation, and those stacks will last for 15 seconds. However, whenever the Jaime barrier is destroyed, it will use 1 stack of Hymation and generate a new barrier on the target. Now after the 15 seconds is up, a healing effect will then be applied. Now that potency of that healing effect will vary depending on how many stacks of Hymation I have left. So the cure potency works out at 150 potency per remaining stack of Hymation. So the more stacks of Hymation I have left, the bigger the cure will be. And that is your starter toolkit. Pretty cool stuff in there, to be fair. Right guys, so now that we've seen the toolkit, dungeon wise, pretty much all the basic healer tips apply. Have a quick check of your party's gear and makeup, because that can generally determine how much healing you have to do. Only use your race spell when Swiftcast is available, and remember to use Lucid Dreaming when you're about 5,000 magic points. Other than that, like all healers, it's more of a priority system than a rotation. Now for Sage, firstly, make sure you put Cardia on the tank for those extra trickle heals. Now Sage's healing style is focused on generating shields to mitigate as much damage as possible. So as such, your first priority will be applying Eucrazia Diagnosis heals to your tank. As they're running and pulling mobs, reapplying it whenever the shield's destroyed. Now this has 2 benefits. Firstly, it reduces the amount of damage that they're taking. Quite a good benefit in its own right. And secondly, each shield that is destroyed will generate you an Adder Sting Crystal. Now you can use those Adder Sting Crystals for Toxicon, your higher powered AoE damage spell, and as a plus side to that, you can use Toxicon while you're running and on the move as well. So as you're running with the tank, you can be doing AoE damage to the enemies as well as healing your guy. Now, once your group's settled, keep applying your shields to your tank for the extra Adder Sting crystals. If you have melees in your group, it's worth giving them shields as well, either manually with Eucrazia Diagnosis or hitting them with a Eucrazia Prognosis for speed. Keep hitting the mobs with Toxicon and Phlegma, your higher powered AoE damage spells, and keep up Physicist 2 and Keratrol as often as possible. I would suggest alternating them instead of using them both at the same time, mainly so that you can reduce the amount of time that the group doesn't have a buff applied to them. If your group's being hit hard, use your Dysgrazia crystals for Keratrol and Keratrol, and after reapplying the shields to heal them back up quickly. And failing that, if you're all out of Dysgrazia crystals, use regular Diagnosis and Prognosis while waiting for one to generate. I'll say use Ceteria whenever it's available, because why waste the chance at extra trickle heals from Cardia? It all adds up. And lastly, use Jaime when your tank is going to be taking a lot of damage in a short period of time, which more often than not is in the larger mob pools in dungeons, as well as a few of the boss mechanics. Now the boss mechanics you will learn with experience or some boss research, should you want to research them before you go in. Not everyone does though. Now boss wise, it's very similar priority. Again, keep your shields up as much as you can. Use your Dysgrazia crystal spells to recover HP quickly. Keep the damage and healing buffs up as much as possible. And like always, if everyone's doing okay, blast them with doses, Toxicon and Phlegma. Nice and straightforward stuff. It's quite an easy job to pick up, and once you know what everything does, and it's quite an easy job to heal with. Reasonably fast paced and quite fun. I do enjoy a good bit of Sage. I do quite enjoy it. I haven't tried the new versions of the healers yet, so I'll get back to you on which one's my favourite. Right guys, so that has been our first look into Sage. Now hopefully we have managed to explain some of the mysteries of the job, unravel some of them. If you have any other questions, do let me know in the comment section below. If you have any other suggestions, do let me know as well. I do like to hear other people's opinions. Now Leah, thank you very much again for the support. It's always appreciated. You do a bang up job. You're going back to the MSQ now. Right guys, so if I don't see you before Christmas, have a happy holidays, have a happy Christmas, Merry Christmas and all that. Spend as much time with family as you can. Cherish the things that matter. Love each other and all that jazz. Now Leah, you got anything else to say to that? Oh, shower them with joy. Alright then. Right guys, so if you're new here, feel free to come hang out, come check out some of the stuff we've got going on. We would love to have you here. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you again for all the support, it's always appreciated. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. And you all know what's coming. Please like, share, comment, subscribe and all that jazz. And as always, we shall see you on the flip side. Bye bye.